Blazing Saddles didn't follow the rules, so here's the promise. The Kid, 1950, didn't either. This is not Chaplin. This is Hong Kong, black and white, post-war street pressure, and a 10-year-old Bruce Lee carrying a whole neighborhood on his shoulders. It's a film that looks small on paper, 77 minutes, modest means, a kid selling comics. Yet it keeps resurfacing because it's secretly doing 3 jobs at once. Comic strip adaptation, social critique, and origin story. And the weird part is how many people have seen pieces of it without realizing what it was because the title keeps disguising it. So, let's do this the right way. Fast, specific, and with no fluff. These are the first 10 weird facts you didn't know about The Kid, 1950. Number 1. The title is a trap, and it's been fooling audiences for decades. Search The Kid and your brain goes straight to Charlie Chaplin, the 1921 silent classic. But this kid is a different continent, a different language, and a different kind of heartbreak. In Hong Kong, it's Shi Lu Xiang, and English releases have circulated under other names like Kid Chong and My Son, Chong, because distributors kept trying to translate a local icon into something outsiders would recognize. Even the source material's name shifts depending on who's talking. Frai, Kitty, Chusheng, or simply The Kid in the slang of the post-war streets. The result is a film with a global identity crisis baked into the opening frame. People stumble onto it thinking they're getting Chaplin, and instead meet a hungry orphan in crowded alleyways, shot in gritty black and white realism, speaking Cantonese, and selling printed dreams to survive. It's the perfect mismatch, a title that sounds universal, attached to a story that's painfully specific. And that confusion became part of the movie's afterlife. For years, it lived in catalogs and archives under different English headings, hiding in plain sight. One film, one kid, and multiple passports, before the first weird fact even finishes rolling. When clips resurfaced online, people argued about what it should even be called. Some labeled it a Bruce Lee curiosity. Others filed it under a comic adaptation. The movie didn't change, only the label did. And that's the first punchline. Here. Number 2. This wasn't written as a movie story first. It was born on paper, in panels, as a comic strip that readers treated like a neighborhood kid they actually knew. The character came from the Manhua Kitty Chung, created by Yuen Po Wan in 1947. And it wasn't cute escapism. It was social criticism with ink stains, poverty, housing, street violence, the post-war scramble for dignity, delivered in a form cheap enough for everyone to buy. That's what makes the film adaptation weirdly ahead of its time. Today, studios farm comics for superheroes. In 1950, Hong Kong, this production farmed a comic for a slum child. The movie keeps the comic's spine. A Chang is an orphan selling comics from a stall, pulled between school and the streets, and constantly reminded that adulthood is a trap disguised as opportunity. But it also does something comics couldn't. It weaponizes real locations, real crowds, and the claustrophobic density of Hong Kong itself. The frame feels packed, like the city is leaning on the boy's shoulders. And in a sly bit of recursion, the kid survives by selling the very medium that created him. A comic character sells comics to eat, while the film sells his face to keep a studio alive. Its adaptation is a loop. The weirdest part is how modern it sounds. Intellectual property, cross-media branding, and a character turned into a franchise. Except it's happening in black and white alleyways, not in a Marvel boardroom. Yet. Number 3. Yes, that's Bruce Lee. Before the kicks, before the myth, before the global poster on every gym wall. In The Kid, he's credited as Lee Siu Lung, and he's only around 10, but the camera already treats him like the center of gravity. Here's the weird part. This wasn't a child discovery story. Bruce had been working for years. Sources note he appeared in more than 20 Cantonese films as a child actor, long before Hollywood ever heard his name. So, when people call The Kid his early appearance, it undersells it. It's closer to his first starring test. Can this kid carry the emotional weight of a whole picture without adult safety nets? He does it by being sharp, restless, and funny in a defensive way. Like a boy who learned that charm is armor. That tonal mix matters because the film isn't designed to flatter him. The story puts him in poverty, lets adults fail him, and forces him to make choices that feel too old for his face. Most child star vehicles build a cushion. This one builds a corner and watches him fight his way out. And because the film is grounded in a comic strip character, he's also performing a real kid and a drawn kid at the same time. That double performance, naturalism inside a stylized premise, is basically the blueprint for the screen persona he'd later perfect. Genuine emotion, controlled presentation, never letting the audience see you sweat at any moment. Number 4. The movie has a built-in family echo that feels like an inside joke. Bruce Lee's father, Lee Hoi-chuen, is in the cast, so the kid on screen isn't just a performance. It's a family trade happening in real time. Lee Hoi-chuen was already established in Cantonese opera and film, and Bruce grew up around stages, costumes, and touring routines. So, when the kid shows A. Chang being pushed around by adult systems, school, gangs, poverty, you're also watching a young performer trained by adults who understood survival as craft. It adds an extra layer to every scene where the boy bargains, bluffs, or tries to stay useful. The story is a child learning how society works, and the production is a child learning how the industry works. That's a lot of weight for a 10-year-old in a drama that doesn't soften its edges. Most child roles are protected by tone. Here, the tone is realism. Tight streets, crowded rooms, grown-up consequences. And the kid has to hold the center without turning it into a cute act. Is seeing father and son in the same credit list turns the whole project into a generational relay. An older performer passing down timing and discipline, while the camera captures the moment the younger one begins to eclipse the world that made him. It's the kind of detail you miss until you realize this film is literally Bruce's origin story, filmed with his family watching from close. Number 5. The film opens like it's about to lecture you, and then it earns the right to. Some prints circulate with a blunt statement up front. Education can't fix society if society won't fix itself. It's a wild move for a movie built around a child character, because it reframes everything that follows. A. Chang isn't misbehaving. He's reacting to a system that keeps narrowing his options until survival looks like disobedience. That framing matters in 1950 Hong Kong, when the city was swelling with post-war displacement and refugees, and schooling was both a promise and a bottleneck. The kid's uncle is a teacher, which could have been a simple moral anchor, but the story makes it complicated. Good intentions don't pay rent, and lectures don't stop bullies. Instead of giving us a mentor, the film gives us an adult who can't protect the boy from the street logic outside the classroom. The weird fact is how modern this structure feels. A lot of later social realist cinema starts with the child and lets the politics creep in. The kid does the reverse. It declares the politics first, then drops you into the child's day. So every beat, selling comics, getting pulled into trouble, trying to stay respectable, carries an argument about what respectability even means when you're poor. It's a street drama disguised as a kid movie, and the opening line is the mask slipping immediately. The film tells you, don't blame the child, watch the city. Number 6. The kid sells you on mischief, then ambushes you with social realism. The setup sounds light. An orphan runs a comic stall and tries to keep his life from collapsing, but the film's world is crowded, tense, and practical, and it refuses to romanticize poverty. A. Chang isn't wandering through a storybook slum. He's navigating a place where adults are exhausted, opportunistic, or both. That's why the plot points hit hard for a kid title. He's attacked at school by the son of a gangster, he's tempted into petty crime, and he's drawn toward a local tough known as Blade Lee. Because the street offers protection, the classroom can't. The uncle teacher tries to steer him straight, but the film keeps showing how straight is a luxury route. Visually, the movie leans into cramped interiors and narrow lanes, as if the city is compressing the boy's choices. It's black and white, but it doesn't look clean. It looks lived in. Modern viewers sometimes compare its energy to a Little Rascal-style kid ensemble, but that comparison only lands on the surface. Underneath, it's closer to a civic report with emotion. The weird fact is that in 1950, this kind of child-centered critique is a Trojan horse. You come for the kid. You stay because the film forces you to see the hierarchy, the money, and the rules that decide who gets to be innocent. And Bruce Lee, even then, plays it like he knows innocence is temporary. Number 7. The villain has the same last name as the star, and it's unintentionally strange. The kid is Bruce Lee. The street tough who pulls him toward trouble is Blade Lee. On paper, it reads like a comic gag, a Hero Lee versus Blade Lee, except this is a street drama that plays it straight. The quirk comes from the comic strip roots, where characters get sharp, descriptive handles. Blade is a warning label, a nickname you can read in one glance. But once you put it in live action, the coincidence turns meta. You're watching the future icon, Bruce Lee, share the frame with a criminal, Lee, who represents the path he does not take. And the story leans into it. A Chang is threatened at school by the son of a gangster, then offered a kind of protection by the street figure. Blade Lee isn't just a bad guy, he's a fork in the road. If the teacher uncle is the official route, Blade Lee is the unofficial one, the route that actually works, until it doesn't. So every time someone says the name, the film is staging a moral argument inside a surname. The kid's identity, Lee, sits between two possible futures: education or enforcement. That's the weird fact. A throwaway nickname turns into a symbolic duel decades before Bruce Lee's own name becomes global shorthand for power. Later fans spot it and laugh, but the movie's seriousness makes the coincidence feel even sharper, not sillier today. Number 8. The credits hide a pairing that feels like two different worlds shaking hands. The Kid was produced by Datong Film Company, a local Hong Kong outfit, but archival records list Universal Pictures as the distributor. For a gritty Cantonese drama about an orphan in crowded alleyways, that's an unexpectedly big-sounding pipeline. It doesn't mean a Hollywood-style global release, but it shows Hong Kong cinema already thinking beyond its street corners. The city was a trade port, and cinema moved like cargo. Titles repackaged, names translated, prints circulated wherever they could earn back their costs. That's part of why the movie accrued multiple English titles over time. The weirdness is the contrast between the story and the business reality. On screen, the kid sells comics for coins, hustling for the next meal. Off screen, the film is doing the same hustle at an industrial scale, trying to find enough screens, enough markets, enough buyers to stay alive. And because it's black and white and made on modest means, it's easy to underestimate how coordinated that pipeline had to be, especially in an era where physical prints were scarce, fragile, and expensive to move. So you get this irony. A movie obsessed with local hardship is also a product designed to travel. The slum kid becomes exportable. His pain becomes a commodity. That tension between intimacy of setting and reach of distribution gives the film an edge you can feel, even if you never read the production notes. Number 9. The Kid is surprisingly lean, around 77 minutes, yet it feels like it contains a neighborhood. That runtime is a weird advantage. The story can't afford detours, so every scene has a job. Show the boys hustle, show the adult pressure, show how quickly one bad friend becomes one bad decision. And because it's shot in black and white, the film's texture does half the storytelling. Bright whites aren't luxury, they're glare. Deep blacks aren't style. They're the corners where deals happen. It's the kind of look that modern filmmakers try to recreate with filters, but here, it's simply the era and the stock. The weird fact is how the movie's physical specs became part of its mythology. In an age of sprawling epics, this compact drama ended up attached to the biggest name in martial arts cinema. People discover it like a secret track on an album, then replay it to hunt for signs of the later Bruce Lee. They watch his posture, his stare, his timing, as if the future is hiding in the negatives. Archival listings even note the film's gauge and format, which sounds technical until you realize what it implies. This is a fragile object that survived because somebody cared enough to preserve it. So the film's short length, its monochrome palette, and its surviving prints combine into one truth. The Kid feels small by design, but it lasts because history decided it mattered. Plenty of bigger films didn't get that privilege. Number 10. The Kid is one of those productions where the credits tell their own story. Feng Feng isn't just the director, he's also in the cast, playing the skilled thief who grooms A Chang, so the man steering the camera is also steering the kid's fate inside the plot. Then look at the writing. Listings credit both Kia Tso and the original comic creator, Po Wan Yuen, as screenwriters. That's a strong hint the adaptation wasn't a loose, inspired by grab. The comic's author sits in the screenplay lineage like the ink is still wet on the film stock, and the casting folds back into that loop again. Bruce Lee's father appears too, playing a forgetful miser in the neighborhood, which is a strange counterweight to the film's harsh realism. In the same picture, you get street pressure, social critique, and an almost cartoonish figure of greed, played by the star's real parent. So the movie slides between tones, but it uses those shifts the way a comic strip would. Quick turns to keep you watching, then a snapback to consequences. The weird fact is that this fusion is the whole design. The credit list isn't clutter, it's the blueprint. Make it entertaining enough to sell tickets and sharp enough to leave a bruise. That's why it holds up. You can watch it as a Bruce Lee curiosity, a comics to cinema milestone, or a city snapshot, and it still works on all three levels in one sitting. Number 11. The Kid has a title identity crisis that starts before the first scene and keeps confusing people today. In Chinese, it's Shilu Xiang, often romanized as Shilu Xiang or Sailu Cheong, but it also turns up as Kid Cheong, and in modern writing about the film, My Son, Ah Chang. That isn't just translation noise, it's the film admitting it lives in two worlds at once. The kid the street recognizes, and the son adults want to correct. One modern analysis notes that the movie opens with a moral proverb about education and character, basically announcing its lesson plan before the drama even warms up. And once you notice that, the alternate titles stop feeling random. Kid Jiang sells the comic-born personality. My Son, Ah Chang, sells the adult obsession with ownership and reform. Even the opening credits reportedly lean into the character's pop culture status. And that's reminding the audience they're watching a famous kid, not just a kid. That's why the same film can look like a wholesome cautionary tale in one catalog, and like bruised social critique in another. Several sources date its Hong Kong release to late May 1950. Number 12. The Kid wasn't born from a screenwriter's imagination. It was imported straight from Hong Kong's comics culture. The film is adapted from the manhwa character Kid Cheong, created by cartoonist Yuan Po Wan, a figure so recognizable that a movie version made obvious commercial sense by 1950. Lambiek describes Kid Cheong as a vehicle for Yuan's critical look at the adult world and society's unfairness, which is why the movie's kid's story keeps widening into a story about class pressure. This origin also flips the usual adaptation logic. Instead of movie creates merchandise, the merchandise created the movie's audience first. People walked in already knowing the kid's face, his attitude, and the way he exposes hypocrisy by surviving it. That's why the film can move fast without losing viewers. The character's reputation does some of the narrative work. The odd part is that the adaptation keeps the comic's bite. Jokes become pressure, and cuteness becomes camouflage. Yuan also worked in film, so the pipeline from strip to screen was a living network. Number 13. Director Feng Feng wasn't just the person calling cut. In The Kid, he also plays Flash Knife Lee, the gangster leader who pulls the child toward trouble, meaning the filmmaker is literally inside his own moral argument. It's a strange creative loop. The man shaping the kid's cinematic fate is also the criminal shaping him within the story. The Hong Kong Film Archive listing credits Feng Feng in the cast and identifies him as the gang leader, so this isn't fan theory. It's built into the film's DNA. That choice changes the texture of the villainy. The gangster doesn't read as a one-note monster. He reads as a grown-up who understands performance, how to look like power, how to look like protection, how to look like the only door out. And because Feng Feng directs the rhythm of scenes, he can calibrate exactly how seductive the gangster appears before the consequences land. Because Feng Feng is both author and antagonist, The movie dares you to watch the villain longer than you want to. You see how the gangster performs success, then uses that performance to recruit a child. Number 14. The kid has a "which version did you watch" problem, and you can spot it in the runtime alone. A modern scholarly note lists the film at 77 minutes, while an official Hong Kong Film Archive screening listing presents it as a 98-minute DCP. That discrepancy isn't a typo. It's the fingerprint of a film that survived through multiple prints, trims, and distribution realities. In an industry that moved fast and archived slowly, scenes were cut for pacing, for censorship sensitivities, for theater schedules, and sometimes simply because a print wore down and someone patched it. So, the same movie can feel sharper or softer depending on which cut you encounter, because moral pressure is pacing. A missing confrontation isn't just missing plot, it's missing a push that explains the kid's next decision. So when you hear 2 runtimes, think of 2 edits of the same morality test. A longer restoration changes the kid's slide and his pullback. Restoration changes inevitability. Number 15. People like to pretend Bruce Lee arrived fully formed as a fighter, but the kid is proof he first arrived as an actor. Major listings describe it as his first leading role, and the performance isn't built around martial arts myth-making. It's built around timing, facial control, and the ability to pivot from charm to defiance in a single beat. The Hong Kong Film Archive synopsis frames him as a slum kid selling comics to support himself and his siblings, then getting pulled toward a gangster mentor before trying to find a way back. That arc demands range, not kicks. He has to read as funny, then stubborn, then scared, then proud, sometimes inside the same minute, without the film letting him hide behind action spectacle. Even the way he occupies space is storytelling. The kid is small, but he learns to stand like someone who refuses to be small. You can hear, in how he holds a look, that he was trained around adults who treated performance as work. That's the thrill. You're watching screen language being learned before the mythology arrives to explain it. Number 16. The Kid is also a family collaboration disguised as a street story. Bruce Lee's father, Lee Hoi Chuen, an established Cantonese opera performer and film actor, appears in the movie, and several major listings point out this was one of the early father-son collaborations on screen after an earlier joint appearance in The Birth of Mankind. In The Kid, archival notes credit Lee Hoi Chuen as the school headmaster Hung Pak To, which is perfect casting in a meta way. The father embodies institutional authority, while the son embodies the kid the institution can't control. That on-screen pairing adds a quiet tension. When the headmaster scolds the kid, it plays as authority versus rebellion, but it also plays like professional discipline meeting street survival, and Lee Hoi Chuen's opera background matters here. Opera training is precision, posture, and controlled intensity, skills a child actor can absorb just by living around them. It also reframes the power dynamic. When the headmaster scolds the kid, it plays as authority versus rebellion, but off-screen, it's father and son. Two professionals, one set, one argument about the future. Number 17. One of the boldest oddities is that the kid treats education like a battlefield, not a background detail. A modern analysis points out how the film opens with a moral proverb about education and character, then immediately shows how hollow that proverb becomes when charity turns into a public performance by the wealthy. The story keeps stress testing whether school will save the poor or simply teach them where they're not welcome. The kid is tugged between a classroom that humiliates him and a street that at least pays attention, even if that attention is predatory. The film also doesn't let adults off easy. A rich family's help can come with control, embarrassment, and branding, while the kid's own community can be harsh in ways that feel like survival turning into cruelty. What makes it unusual is how openly it shows systems failing at once. The street exploits, the school humiliates, and even help can be a costume. The kid's choices feel less like sin and more like logic. Number 18. The Kid's modern reputation is almost archaeological because many people discover it less like a movie and more like a recovered artifact. One modern write-up literally links out to viewing the film and discusses it like a document of post-war life, not just entertainment. And that academic posture has bled into fandom. People compare runtimes, hunt for clean audio, and celebrate hearing Bruce Lee speaking Cantonese as a child, as if the soundtrack is evidence. Here's the weird twist. Attention runs backward. In 1950, The Hook was a beloved comic kid finally on screen. Now, The Hook is Bruce Lee before Bruce Lee, and the film has to fight to be seen as more than a collectible. That shift changes the viewing experience because you start scanning scenes for prophecy instead of pain. So, don't sell this as a cute Bruce Lee collectible. Sell it as a time machine with teeth. Want more deep cuts? Like, subscribe, and comment the next film. Number 19. Another strange layer is how directly the kid documents a street economy that modern viewers might assume is invented for flavor. A modern analysis emphasizes rental comics culture. The kid runs a reading stall, hangs comic books on strings, and charges small fees to children who come to read, connecting that practice to wider post-war habits of renting and circulating serial comics. In other words, the movie isn't using comics as cute set dressing. It's showing how children monetize imagination while adults monetize everything else. That detail isn't cute. It's the film explaining why the kid is always one bad day away from the gangster's offer. His business depends on pennies and patience. And because the kid sells stories, the film turns itself into a mirror. Stories feeding a child inside a story about a city that can't stop consuming. In the essay's description, the stall sits beside a street food stand where shady adults gather. The kid's reading business is parked next to crime's meeting point on the same sidewalk. Number 20. The cruelest weird fact isn't on screen. It's what happens when you try to find the film at all. Say, The Kid. And most people jump straight to Chaplin's 1921 classic. So this 1950 Hong Kong title spends its whole life fighting a name it can't outrun. Even inside Bruce Lee fandom, it gets buried under the assumption that his story only becomes real once the martial arts era begins. But the listings that matter keep correcting the record. Repertory programs and archive catalogs still frame it as a social drama. Slum pressure, temptation, reform, and a city that chews up boys and calls it fate. The confusion doesn't just hurt reputation, it breaks discoverability. One release becomes multiple titles. One runtime splinters into competing numbers, and search results serve duplicates that look official until you click. Metadata gets scrambled, recommendations misfire, and casual viewers bounce before the first frame. Watched in context, it isn't a Legends warm-up or an action prototype. It's a stark confession from Hong Kong cinema about survival, shame, and the cost of growing up. Once you watch it, the city stays with you. And that's why the wrong search result feels like a crime. Bonus fact. The most quietly surreal detail is that the comic creator didn't just inspire the movie, he stepped into it. The Hong Kong Film Archive listing credits Yuen Po Wan in the cast and identifies his role, turning the adaptation into a literal crossover between page and screen. That makes the film feel like a handshake between industries. The man who drew the kid also performs the adult world the kid is trapped in. It's also a reminder that mid-century Hong Kong pop culture wasn't siloed. It was a small ecosystem where the same names could draw, act, and shape taste across formats. Then there's the extra layer of mythology from a Cantonese language source, which claims the stage name Bruce Lee itself was connected to Yuen Po Wan's influence. So, depending on which thread you follow, the comic didn't just supply a character, it helped brand a future global icon. And if that feels too meta, comic creator, comic kid, child star, father actor, director villain, that's because this film is a nod of Hong Kong pop culture in 1950. Untie it, and it still refuses one box.